Great. This is a really exciting moment for you to be able to spend some time with people who have lived very rich lives. They are here to spend an hour with you at my request because they are soldiers and people who have served in the United States military. It's always a really wonderful opportunity for us to have them come to be with us right before our Americana concert. And this year we have with us individuals from the Army. We have Army folks, and we have Marines.
Hoorah!
And Navy?
No Navy, no Air Force.
Navy, Coast Guard?
No Coast Guard.
Coast Guard?
Air Force.
And Air Force.
No Air Force.
Okay, good. Each one of these men has a very rich story to tell. And I thought perhaps could we give you guys a few minutes to tell us a little bit about you and maybe some of the things that you've done in your service. And then students, you guys can be thinking of, I've got some questions I'd like to ask. And so if you'd like to ask some questions, maybe we could open it up for questions in a little bit. So Mr. Hubbard, can we start down there with you?
My name is James Hubbard. I was a specialist fourth class, Vietnam, 1966 and 1967. I was an infantryman. We, of course, graduated from high school. Not this high school, I was from Clarkston. We left probably just about, I would think I had about a month after graduation. Of course, in 1964, when the war was just starting in Vietnam, or it had been going on, I think everybody graduating class knew we were going to Vietnam. But I don't know if it's fortunate or not, but I was drafted into the U.S. Army and went to Vietnam and served the country the best I could. I happened to get wounded when I was there, but I don't know how much of a story you want to hear about that. But I did what I was supposed to do. You know, you're given orders, you follow through the orders, and I survived. So I was very happy about coming home.
Yes.
Okay, I'm Randy Stetson. I served in Vietnam 68, 69. I was with the Air Cavalry Assault Helicopter Team as a recon unit. I graduated from Hazel Park High School. I was drafted. How many of you know what drafted means? What does it mean, Emily?
It means you got a letter in the mail and it said you have to go.
You got
once you go to
your
the
friends and neighbors, they're sending you over. You have no choice. You have to go in. Back in those days, you had to go in. You had to serve your country, which I was proud to do. And I was wounded more than once, several times. I made it out alive, and that's about it. Thank you very much.
My name is Michael Ledford. I graduated from Lake Orion High School. I was drafted also. I take my second physical for the draft. And at that point, when we were down at Fort Wayne in Detroit, when Fort Wayne was still down there, I was walking down the hallway and this gunnery sergeant says, "Hey," he says, "what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I just took my second physical for the draft." He said, "You been sworn in yet?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, step in here, young man. I'd like to talk to you." We sat down and had a little talk, and I knew I didn't like to fly, couldn't walk on water, and everybody else was going in the Army, so I thought, let's go in the Marine Corps. So that's how I got in. I went overseas in 69 and 70. I was with 3rd Marine Amphibious Force. We were at Red Beach. And I was very fortunate not to have gotten hurt and served honorably, just like these other gentlemen up here.
My name is Hal Mitchell, and I was in U.S. Marine Corps, and I joined. It was an honor to serve, and I always wanted to be a Marine, so I joined the Marine Corps. When I went to Vietnam, I had a little bit of rank, Lance Corporal, so when I went over there, they made me a fire team leader. When I first came over, I didn't even know what a fire team leader was. I thought, what do you do, put out fires? Or Come to find out, a fire team leader, I had a machine gunner and 2 riflemen with me, and my job was to set up a perimeter and protect our motor platoon. So that's what I did. And after serving a year, I came back and got out after 3 years of service. Thank you.
My name's David Kowalski. I graduated in '58 out of Brandon, and I went every year after that for a physical. And they'd always send me back home. And in 1963, I went for my physical, and they didn't send me back home. They sent me down to Fort Knox for basic training in the Army. And from there, I went to Fort Gordon and a signal school, and then to Korea. In 1964 and 65, I was in Korea as a radio teletype operator, and we were on a base, a missile base that had Anasion missiles, and we were the signal people that coordinated the practice firing of the missiles. So, then in 65, when I came back from Korea, I was in Fort Sill for a short time, and then was let out of the Army. So.
Good morning. My name is Jim Braden. I received my draft notice in January '65. I'm from the state down south of here. And so I went in...
Come on, tell them where you're from.
I graduated from Elyria High School in Elyria, Ohio. I'll see you.
Full age.
So I did, as it's been explained, we all were waiting for our draft notices, and I got mine, but I decided to enlist and go in for 3 years. I went into the Army in 1966. Actually, Christmas Eve 1965, I arrived in my base in Korea, which happened to be the same base as this young man here, but we were 1 year apart serving there. Having served there, I then went to Fort Benjamin Harrison and Fort Eustis, Virginia, and served out my time. As many of these guys, again, if we could do it again, we would. But I served honorably, and I really appreciated the fact that I could serve the country. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Clarence Cameron. I joined the Marine Corps. I joined in 1953. I went to boot camp in San Diego. After San Diego, I went to individual combat training in Camp Pendleton. After that, they had me on a cruise ship to Korea, and I spent from 1954 to 55 in Korea. And I was a rifleman. Above all Marines are riflemen, and my primary job was wireman. So thank you very much.
I'm Lauren Schmidt. I graduated from Lake Orion High, and I got married in 1950. 2 years later, I got my draft notice. I went in the Army and went to California for basic. I came home from basic for 30 days, and then I went to Japan. I was there for 3 months, and they sent me to Korea. And I spent a year and a half, close to 2 years in Korea. And I was on a ship because I had my points to go home. I was back in Seoul, and I was on the ship, and they signed the truce that morning that I left. So I think I was the first ship out of there, but I came home and no wounds and wasn't hurt, so thank you.
Good morning. I'm an Oxford High School graduate in 1965. I'm a hometown boy, grew up here, stayed here, delivered the newspapers back then. Went into the military, ended up serving in Korea. Like I said, I graduated in 65, was drafted in September of 66. Ended up in Korea where these other two gentlemen were. Was a crew chief on a self-propelled 175, and that's a That's like taking a big 8-inch gun off one of those Navy ships and mounting it on a tracked vehicle and you shoot 30 miles with it. Some of the guys down there, they remember them over in Vietnam, hearing those big guns go off. They actually didn't hear it till the over went by, and it made a big boom down there and put a hole in the ground about 8 feet. But at any rate, I served over there, and winters were bad. I had almost a 13-month tour in. They took the USS Pueblo in January of '68, and I was extended another 6 months, so I didn't come home until June of '68. So I spent 18 months over there on the Rock, as they call it. Or at the end of, I should say, Hell's Road. That's what a lot of the guys called that place. There was no further road, no place else to go. And it was a rough, hard tour. It was similar to Vietnam, and some of those guys will attest to it. When you graduated out of school back then, we got to figure we were just right out of high school. They stuck you in an environment, put you overseas, and you landed in some place that was like stepping back in time 100 years. So just remember those kinds of things. Military, as you see it, it's a good time. You meet a lot of good friends, but they don't always put you in a place that you'd like to be. But that's my story, and thank you for being here.
When all of you began your military service, you began with something called boot camp. And that was in different parts of the country. And would you like to share what was that experience like when you began?
Well, in my case, infantry, boot camp was getting you physically fit. It helped that, you were a football player and at the time I was a football player and strong and grew up on the farm and was able to do everything, all the exercises, the running and everything. But I did meet a lot of gentlemen that were drafted that never did anything in their life. I mean, whatever, I don't know. They were not physically strong. Boot camp made you strong. The sergeant was very nice. The very first day says, today we're only going to do 1 push-up and 1 set-up and 1 jumping jack, but every day we're going to add 1. After 90 days you're there, you do 90 setups, 90 push-ups, 90, and you really, and this is twice a day. They do morning and evening.
And running.
So
Did you
they
run?
do get you physically fit.
Did you run too?
Oh yes, yeah. Well, you marched a lot. You learned how to march a lot, but you did have to run the mile every day. So, but yeah, it just basically boot camp was getting you physically fit. Then after that, you go to an advanced. If you're going to be infantry or whatever, you go to a different. I was in South Carolina, in the swamps of South Carolina, knowing I was going to Vietnam infantry, that they put you in the swamps and the hot and the mud and the guts so that you could understand what it's going to be when you do get to that country. So that's where my infantry and then my advanced training.
And then how long did boot camp last?
I think it's 5 months.
8 weeks?
It's 8 weeks, but there's some time in there.
There's
You get 30
extended.
days before and 30 days after between services, so it's 8-10 weeks.
Yeah.
Unless you get, what do they call it, ROL or whatever, if you didn't pass the physical at the end, you had to do it all over again. There's a rotation again, you had to rotate again and do it all over again. If you weren't physically strong and ready to go, you'd have to do it all over again. Oh, yeah, we did.
We're going to talk about Marine Corps boot camp, which wasn't a very pleasant 10-week course. Back by
Mine was 12 weeks.
12 weeks.
Mine was 8 weeks.
They can learn everything in 8 weeks.
They were different. They
were different time.
Marine Corps. Different Marine Corps. There was but as I flew. I didn't fly. I took the train from Detroit to San Diego. Everybody was nice. After we got into San Diego, we got into large trucks. Everybody was still nice. Then we got on the base on San Diego, and the drill instructor stepped on that bus, and he looked at us, and we were the lowest individuals in the world. There's other terms I can use, but we can't use them. Anyway, He got off the bus and all he said was, "Get off the bus, get off the bus." Everything changed, everything changed. We got off the bus and then it was 13 weeks of having him into my face and to these two other individuals. It was a long, drawn-out affair. We did push-ups, we went in and had our chow, and we sat there until we were told to sit down, and when we were told to sit down, we were told to eat. They told us to do everything we wanted to do. And, you know, they were right there in our face. Okay, Mike, you want to add a little something to that?
Yeah, they pretty much break you down before they build you back up again. Like he said, for chow, you'd go in for chow and you'd sidestep through the chow line. When you got to the table, you set your tray down, everybody stood at attention until they told you to seat. They wanted to hear one butt get the seat at one time. When that drill instructor went over and sat down, when he was through with his dinner or breakfast or whatever, you had to be out in formation, waiting for him. If he come in the morning and all he had was a cup of coffee, you had a cup of coffee to get your breakfast eaten and get out in formation, be ready for him when he comes out the door.
So he didn't tell you when he was going to be done, you just...
Oh no, you had to sit, you better be watching him, because when he stood up to leave, you better be outside staying in formation, waiting for him. This was what it was for 12 weeks for us. An easy day was a Sunday when the gunny was there, the gunnery sergeant, because all we had to do was a 3-mile run that day. And the rest was what they called commander's time. You sat out on the sidewalk in front of your hooch, in front of the barracks, on your foot locker, and you polished your brass, you polished your shoes, and you polished your cover on the bill on your cover, because everything then was leather. It wasn't any of this shiny plastic stuff, it was all leather. So you had to polish your shoes, you had to polish your brass, everything had to be kept up nice and neat, foot locker and all this. That was an easy day on Sunday. The rest of the day through the week was all drills and all marching and classroom and all kind of, wherever you went, you ran, wherever you went, you run, and nobody walked. All ran in formation. After that, we went to Pendleton for infantry training for 30 days, and then we went for another 30 days for advanced infantry training, and that's when we got, in the Marine Corps, that's when we got our first leave. It was after 12 weeks of boot camp and then 8 weeks of infantry. And then that's when I got my first leave to go home out of boot camp. I know the Army sometimes split their stuff up. We didn't. You stayed till you got done and then you had to leave and then you went on to your next duty station, whatever your permanent duty station was.
So when you say leave, that meant you could go home?
You went home for 30 days. This was, like I said, after what we called boot camp and infantry. That's when you had your 30-day leave, and then you could go home, and after that you went back to whatever your next permanent duty station was going to be. Mine was back to San Diego again. I was at boot camp in San Diego, MCRD. That was my first permanent duty station, was back at MCRD. And then from there I went to 29 Palms, California, which is out in the desert. And from 29 Palms I went to Vietnam.
Do you ever have a choice in where you want to go?
You could request a station, but you don't have any choices, no.
No, that's right.
No, they put you where they want you, they put you where they need you. If they needed this MOS over here, then that's where they sent you over there. If they needed corporals, then they sent, we need some corporals, so that's where they sent. They put you wherever they needed you, wherever you could do the most good, you know.
I was in the Army, and I remember taking a train for the first time in my life from Cleveland to Fort Knox, Kentucky. I think, boy, this is pretty cool. Until I got there. They get you off the bus, they get you in a formation, you know basically nothing, and they tell you right away you're going to be all the same, just like dogs. And that's pretty much how it goes for the next 8 weeks. We had 2 hills in Fort Knox, Agony and Misery. I think they were 17-mile hills. And we did have to walk and run up and do those hills. And they did cut our hair off. They did give us shots, and they don't particularly care how many shots they give you in a day, but it was a real-life experience.
Good. you have a question?
Do you guys ever sleep?
It was very hard in Vietnam. In Vietnam, it was really hard to sleep because, first of all, you have no bed. You're sleeping on the ground. You're tired. You're hungry. You've been working, basically, walking, carrying your gun, weapons, your food, whatever you carry with you. You're very tired. You're very exhausted. You just took little cat naps. You lean up against a stump or against a tree or lay down in the mud and rest for an hour or two. And then you're right up and doing it again. You had to rely, when you did sleep, on a friend to watch. So you usually have 3 or 4 friends together I was with, and one guy would stay awake while the 3 of us would sleep, and then he'd wake somebody else up, and we'd all kind of wake up and decide who's going to be next to kind of guard duty. So you had little periods of sleep. It was a little tough. Yep.
Wow, this is great. Let's go over here. Brendan.
What time did you have food at boot camp?
Food at boot camp?
Yeah.
Well, you got 3 squares a day, but you ate what they told you to eat. If you were overweight, you ate nothing but salad.
Right.
If you were underweight, you ate everything they put on your plate. And if they piled it up, you ate it before you got out the door.
I might elaborate a little bit on that. When I went in the Marine Corps, I weighed 115 pounds through basic training, well, I should say boot camp. The DI was walking with me down the chow line, and he was eating mashed potatoes and throwing them on my plate, and butter on bread, and all this food. I couldn't believe it. And the guy behind me was overweight, and he'd give him like a slice of bread, maybe some water, and a can of milk. And then he put me across from this guy at the table, and everybody would sit down with the DI, and when, like he was saying, Mike was saying that when the DI was done, you better be out there in formation. So I'm nothing but elbows trying to get, and I just think, oh, I wish I could give this food to that other guy. He'll starve it over there. So
did you put on weight?
when you went through San Diego, they called us Hollywood Marines.
Hollywood Marine.
Hollywood Marines. So I was a Hollywood Marine.
Sunglasses and sunscreen lotion.
Shot out from me when I was in Vietnam without being killed. Of course, the last one, this is what they call the $1 million wound. And the radio, I was carrying the radio then. And that was all, because they don't aim at you because you're the communications. They want to knock that out first.
Nobody wanted to be by the radio.
Nobody wanted a radio, but you had to do it.
Our radio was on a truck, a deuce and a half truck, and we had a trailer with 2 generators in it. And so we had to do quite an elaborate setup. We go set up and be like the net communications for the field exercises we were doing.
Oh, great, thank you. Who's this? Yeah. Paige.
My grandfather served in Vietnam Army, and he said that they took you out in boot camp. They took you out into a live, shooting range, and they pretty much reenacted what you were doing at war.
That's true.
It's true. They try to get you ready for it, so
Yeah,
you know how to
and
react.
running wild goats and shit.
Pardon me?
What does that mean? What did you do then?
You're not running. You're on the ground,
Crawling.
Crawling.
trying to stay low. Bullets are flying over top.
They put
Hand
mud-
grenades are going off. Lots of noise. Lots of gunfire to get you. Pardon?
Did anyone actually get hurt during combat?
Once in a while, there were people that got wounded and killed that didn't
If you
pay
stand up, you're
attention.
going to get killed.
Right. And
And you got to go through a
panicked.
bunch of mud and barbed wire and whatever.
Everything they could train.
Explosives going off, whatever.
Lots of loud
That's part of the
noises.
training.
Okay, and my grandfather also said that one time in Vietnam when he was serving, they gave him a little fold-up kind of cot thing, and he had to dig his own hole and put it in the ground and stay low to 6 feet underground he was.
Yep.
He said that.
Like a foxhole, is what it's called.
Yeah,
Right.
and he also said that he got attacked by 50,000 fire ants.
Yep.
That night.
There's fire ants everywhere in Vietnam. They were hard.
Vietnam, you're like a 360 degree. Your people all around, enemy were all around you. You just had to make your way through it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Let's go up here and then we'll go down. Go ahead. Go ahead, Kim.
Okay. What kind of food do you eat while you're serving?
Anything you can get your hands on. But pretty much it was, what do they call it?
Sea rations.
Sea rations.
It's just a little box that had lima beans and ham, and some crackers.
From World War II.
From World War II, they're all World War II
Absolutely,
bags.
yes.
I think the latest one, I was there in '66, and I might have had one in like package in '60, maybe '63, but most of them were from '58 and '59.
We have World War II.
Sea rations. That's what
They
I
just
ate
pack
the
them
whole
away
time.
and reissue
Yeah,
them?
they just throw them on the chopper. They fall through the canopy and you just put them up and eat them.
I used to take what they call, you know what C4 is? Anybody know what C4 is? What is it? You?
White gaze.
Yeah, right. I used to take a little bit off it to heat up my sea rations. A little bit, because if you ignite it, it'll just burn out. And it's just enough to get your sea rations nice and warm. But if you were to hit it or anything of that nature, it'll blow you to kingdom come. But
The Marines were a little more inventive. They used their mosquito repellent, mixed it with peanut butter. It would burn forever.
It didn't get the mosquitoes away, but
In Korea, we were a little bit more fortunate. When we rode around in the Jeep, we took our sea rations and put them on the exhaust pipe coming up to heat it up. And if we forgot, it would explode and get all over the engine.
Tell them about that cow, how you got fresh milk.
I got off the ship, got into Korea, and while we were on the ship, we ate pretty good. The Navy eats very well.
They're spoiled.
And so when I got off the ship, I went into a staging area and went to breakfast at the chow hall. There was this great big tub of milk. And I thought, holy mackerel. So I got the ladle and I poured that into my canteen cup. I took one great big swig, and here it was powdered milk. So even powdered eggs was a good thing.
Mr. Parker.
Artillery was a lot smarter than those guys. We couldn't use the C4 because you had all these big rounds out there, 137 pounds, 100-pound powder canisters. In the wintertime, it'd run about 30, 35 below zero. You could actually take a canteen, or if you were lucky enough to have something warm like coffee. We ate sea rations like those guys, of course, but we warmed everything up on the engine housing. We had a 500-horse diesel in there, and you cranked that thing up in the wintertime every 20 minutes, so the hydraulics would work in it. And that's how we warmed our sea rations up. But yeah, we couldn't use C4. We had to be careful what was going on. There was basically no smoking at all in that area because of those big 100-pound blocks of canisters that you loaded the round in, and then you rammed up 100 pounds of powder behind that to shoot that thing anywhere from 20 miles to 30 miles. And also it got so cold, 30, 35 below. You take, if you had something left that was maybe warm off, that you tried to warm something up to drink, or if you just had water, like you guys carry these water bottles, plastic bottles, they didn't become popular really back until Desert Storm in '91. If you had one of those, that thing would have froze, and if we had anything left, you'd take it like this and slosh it to get rid of what was left in your canteen cup. It turned to snow crystals in the air when it hit the ground. That's how cold it was. And this summertime, it got so hot, it was running 100, 105 up there a lot of days. I know it was maybe a little cooler where you guys were, but it got so hot you couldn't breathe some days.
No, it would get very, very hot. I don't think we had plastic in those days.
We didn't have plastic, no. We had canteens, as I said.
Steel, they were steel.
Yeah, there's metal canteens, and it would just freeze.
everything was metal.
Yeah.
When my dad was in the Army, he came out, and it was around the 4th of July. So we went to a 4th of July party, and they had, fireworks and stuff, and he got, so scared, he jumped up and ran into the car and plugged his ears. Does that happen to, you guys are on the 4th of July?
Well, I think most of us have gotten used to that, but that did happen.
It's flashbacks, like
Yeah, you get thinking something, you relate it to something that wasn't very nice. And sometimes you are scared. I mean, you got to remember, you're 18, 20 years old in a country you don't even know where you're at really in relationship to your homeland, and you're all alone at nights, all night long, being shot at, and explosives everywhere, IUDs, they're planting bombs everywhere. It's a very scary time, and it's hard sometimes to survive that. the government calls it PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And a lot of guys have that, and that's a little touch of that. Your mind plays some very serious tricks on you, especially as you're leaving the war. You get accustomed to the battlefield, accustomed to some not so pleasant places, and when you get released or come home, sometimes you have little flashbacks. It's a little tough sometimes.
Yeah, thank you. Kinsey?
My brother's in the Air Force, and he said that on Sundays.
what? Air Force.
Stand up, Kinsey, they can't see that.
My brother's in the Air Force, and he said that on Sundays you get the choice to either do like a workout or something, or you could go to church. Did you guys get that option?
You could
Where I
work
was-
out or
where-
go to
Where I was in Vietnam, there was no church. Basically left the plane, jumped on a helicopter, was dropped in the jungle, and I was in the jungle for 9.5 months. I saw no buildings except for little grass hutches that we burned down or whatever, and stuff like that. I was in a different area. Some gentlemen might have been different, but I didn't see anybody but the enemy. I didn't see any buildings or any people. We were just search and destroy in the jungle. Helicopters would fly over and drop us food and stuff. I'm a little bit different. Some of the guys had bases they were established out of, but being the 196 Light Infantry, they were just infantry, and we were just everywhere in the jungles, hiding and searching for the enemy. So.
Yeah, okay.
I see like movies and you like crawl or like elbow things like under wire. Have you ever got like touched? Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a lot of that. There wasn't so much of that in Vietnam. You crawled around a lot in Vietnam, but that was in the training where you had to crawl under the wire, the machine guns and things like that. You had to crawl around to save your life in Vietnam. I mean, at least I did. Infantry guy. I mean, there's bullets flying all the time trying to get you, and you're just trying to jump over logs, crawl under stuff, get to a better place, more secure place to lay down a base of fire and things like that. So it's a little. You're not running up, standing up, running anywhere. At least I wasn't. I don't know about the rest of the guys, but
What you see in the movies is not what...
Savannah, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, both of my parents were in the Army, and my dad actually went to Desert Storm, but they always told me about how they had to go into rooms and they filled it up with gas.
That was part of the
Training.
Where again, they would issue you, take you in as a group and give you a gas mask and send you into the gas chamber. It was all controlled.
I'll tell you one good thing, one old movie to watch. You guys probably seen it, and that's Forrest Gump. Funny, but it's true to fact. I mean, it's Army, but basically you meet all types of different people as you come into the service. They take away your individuality, and he takes you through all the main courses all the way up to Vietnam.
Yeah, that's a really good movie.
Love that movie.
Yeah, CJ.
My father is in the Air Force, currently in Afghanistan, but when he was in Kuwait, he said that he was being bombed several times, and we were on the phone with him once, and he kind of just said calmly, "Oh, we're being bombed, I have to go."
You can't relax. I mean, there's bombs going off all the time, so you really don't know when to duck or dive. As you get closer, you kind of try to find a place to hide. But you get kind of casual to it.
Is he still there?
He's in Afghanistan right now, but
Do you know when
he's coming back the
Well, God bless him.
Yeah, thank you for your dad's service.
Thank you for his
Thank you a
service.
lot.
Sparkers.
We mentioned the movie. How many of you have seen the movie Private Ryan?
Oh,
That's a good one, too.
If you saw that movie, that's not reality. The reality of it is that that's Hollywood, that's a movie. What took place there, and these guys will tell you, a lot of that is 10 times worse, the real story. What you see is a Hollywood version of what took place on the beachhead when they went in, and it was 10 times worse than what you saw.
There was this commercial on TV, like, where this one guy served, and, like, he was having this dream of, like, something bad, and then, like, it was saying, like, dogs don't just help the blind, they help the ones who seen too much. Is that, like, do dogs help you, like, will they help you, like,
Seeing eye dogs.
Yeah, we had dogs over there. A lot of times, what they call long-range reconnaissance groups, they would use, a lot of times they'd use dogs. The dogs are very efficient. They'll sniff out just about anything. They saved a lot of lives over there, so.
Wow, this is awesome. I'm going to start, okay, what page you've already asked the question, I'm going to go to.
What do all your medals mean?
Well, I think all the guys have got different ribbons on, and maybe Jim, how about you? You explain a little more, because you're kind of used to it all.
Yeah, we all have different campaigns and different medals. The Marine Corps has a rifle badge, and the Army has different ones. This is a wheeled vehicle driver's badge, which is kind of rare. They don't issue that anymore. 10,000 miles for track vehicle. That's wheeled vehicles, like in Jeeps and trucks, and also track vehicles. I did that within 18 months, and most people that are in 12 months don't get that rating. And I had 18 months behind doing that type of running heavy equipment. But the ribbons themselves that you're looking at, we mentioned earlier, the red is for artillery. Jimmy's got a blue one on the far end down there for infantry. We've got some guys that were missile and signalmen. The Marine Corps did have this one. Only very few got that. It has a black tip. Go ahead.
The 5th Marine Regiment and the 6th Marine Regiment got the
French 40 gear.
Yeah, from World War I.
That's where this is from. The unit received one in World War I and World War II. And I was with that artillery unit, with one of the oldest artillery units in the United States, and that's why I still wear that. The green up on top, what do we got? These are green. It's got a unit crest on top. The green is for a command sergeant position. I was a crew chief in a command acting E7 on the gun crew for 175 howitzers. We mentioned earlier about how big those were. The destruction area, if one of those 175 rounds hit this school, 90% casualties because of the destruction. If it hit the center, it would put a crater 8 feet deep, 16 feet in diameter, blow the windows out of this school, and you thought a tornado would have hit this place. And 90% of you would be injured or killed. That's how much destructive power that gun had. And when they used them in Vietnam, they leveled jungles with them with beehive rounds. The effect of that is devastating. We mentioned earlier, we were discussing before you guys come in, short rounds. And what a short round was, and you haven't brought it up, was that sometimes the powder used, it wasn't necessarily the artilleryman's fault, but the powder got damp. You loaded the maximum charge for the distance you wanted to go. Sometimes it didn't burn quick enough, and it would not detonate. It would fall short. That's what a short round is. You might end up killing some of your own guys, and that happens occasionally. Just like the Air Force dropping bombs and making bomb patterns. Back to the ribbons we're looking at. On the bottom down here, there's overseas, we got the overseas combat, national defense down here. This is a national defense, the red one. There's an old Korean defense one that they've come out with and given us lately. Armed Forces Expeditionary. There's a Cold War ribbon. The one up here is good conduct, and the green one down here is a Army accommodation. This is a vice presidential ribbon. We all have different ones. Now, some of the guys are wearing VFW ribbons above the other pocket over here. I have one that's on this side, U.S. Presidential Citation. But Jim, tell them what those are. You've got some VFW ones too.
This one here is, you guys have to go.
Hello, Mrs. Flynn?
Yes.
Should I see Brandon Westy?
Sure. He's on his way.
It's Kennelly in the counseling office.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sorry, this is our VFW. We're all veterans of war members. That is what we're members of. This one here is for our honor guard. These are our honor guard uniforms for our post. And this one over here is represents those of us who sold poppies. Some of you maybe you're riding in your car, and you've seen some of us in the summer around May selling poppies or distributing poppies for donations, and that's what that one means. These other ones, I was in the AG Corps, the Adjutant General Corps, and that and this cord is what that represents. And this was the missile base that actually David and I served on in South Korea. Then it goes on. Different gentlemen have different ribbons, which all represent something different in the service. There are thousands of them.
I've got a few more different because I was wounded in Vietnam. I got a Purple Heart and a Silver Star, Bronze Star for valor that I received for
Can you
saving somebody.
Can you explain the difference between a Purple Heart and a Silver Star?
Randy, why don't you, I can't see
The
them.
Purple Heart basically is being wounded in action. That's the Purple Heart right here. The Silver Star is for saving men. This is the third highest medal the United States bestows upon an individual. That's for gallantry in action. That's for saving men. It looks gold. There's a little bit of silver in the middle. They give you about 5 cents worth of silver for all the work that you've done. This is the very high medal. This is the Bronze Star. This is the very high medal. It's not as high as this. This is the third highest. This is down the road about 4th or 5th high. Now, there's a Congressional Medal of Honor. That's the highest you can get. And the Distinguished Service Cross is the second highest medal. And these are Vietnam campaign medals. He's been in major campaigns twice. That's what these stars represent. This is the National Defense Medal. And then the rest of them are basically just good conduct medal. Like this ribbon would be like a good conduct or whatever.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, like about a year ago, my mom, she suffered like a brain injury.
Oh my.
And, well, it's called a subarachnoid hemorrhage. It's where between your skull and your brain there's bleeding. It's like kind of like an aneurysm.
Yes.
And she was very lucky to have. Like,
Your mother served?
No, she had a brain injury like earlier.
I see, yeah.
And
Okay.
she has been like diagnosed with PTSD, which is where it's just she gets really scared because it was really like it was obviously really scary for everybody. So I kind of get what you mean when you see people say that like they get like some people are confused why that would even happen, but I kind of understand.
Right.
That I was.
Can you guys give our veterans a On Saturday, November 1st, we're going to be having our 12th annual Americana concert where we honor the service and the sacrifice of our veterans from the American Armed Forces. We would enjoy having all of our veterans from the surrounding community and Oxford to join us that evening to celebrate our veterans. That's Saturday night, the 1st of November at 7 o'clock at the Oxford High School Performing Arts Center.
You're watching OCTV, Oxford Community Television, serving Oxford, Addison Township, and the Village of Leonard.